Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down some pretty complex topics. Most of us think we have a solid grip on what stealing is, but in the eyes of the law, a simple theft and a violent robbery are separated by this razor-thin line. Today, we're going to find out exactly where that line is. So you've got a quiet pickpocket on one hand and a violent mugger on the other. I mean, they both take what isn't theirs, right? But in a courtroom, they are worlds apart. And the key isn't what was taken, but how it was taken. Let's dig in and pinpoint exactly where the law draws that line. All right, so first things first, we have to start with the foundation, the anatomy of theft. You really can't understand what makes something a robbery until you've completely broken down the crime it's built on. Okay, so think of theft less like a single action and more like a recipe with 5 essential ingredients. And for the law to actually call something theft, a prosecutor has to prove every single one of these was in the mix. If even one is missing, well, it's not legally theft. It's that simple. So first up, the property has to be movable. This seems pretty obvious, but the law gets super specific. You can't steal a plot of land or a house. But the second you cut down a tree on that land, it's not part of the land anymore. It's now logs of wood. It's movable. And now, yep, it can be stolen. Same thing with the door you pry off its hinges.
And this is a big one, a point that trips a lot of people up. The crime of theft is officially complete the instant the property is moved, even by an inch, as long as there's dishonest intent. It doesn't matter if the thief gets caught 2 seconds later and has to drop it. That tiny movement is the final ingredient. At that exact moment, the theft has happened.
Okay, now let's get into what is probably the trickiest part of theft law, but honestly, it's also the most fascinating. We're talking about the critical legal difference between having possession of something versus just having temporary custody of it. Think of it this way. If you leave your goods in a friend's warehouse for 6 months, you've legally transferred possession. If your friend sells them, that's a breach of trust. But if you hand someone $20 to go buy you a train ticket right now, you've only given them temporary custody. You still legally possess the money. If they run off with it, that's theft. And this idea of mere custody pops up all over the place. A servant walking your dog, they just have custody. You still possess the dog. A guest using your silverware at dinner, custody. You still possess it. In all these situations, the person is just temporarily handling the item. The moment they decide to keep it, they're taking it from your possession, which makes it theft. Okay, get ready for a real head scratcher. It is totally possible for an owner to commit theft of their own property. I know, it sounds completely illogical, but it's the perfect way to understand that core principle. Theft is a crime against possession, not necessarily ownership. Here's the classic example. You take your watch to be repaired. That repairman now has a lawful right to possess your watch until you pay the bill. It's called a lien. If you sneak back and take your own watch without paying, you have legally committed theft. Why? Because you took it from his lawful possession, even though you're the owner. All right, so we've got a solid grasp on theft. Now let's escalate things. What exactly does it take to turn this crime into something way more serious? Robbery. The key feature of theft is that it's usually a crime of stealth. It's quiet. Think of a pickpocket or a shoplifter. The whole idea is for the victim not to notice, at least not right away. Robbery is the total opposite. It's loud, it's confrontational, it's in your face. It is, by its very nature, a crime of force and fear. It's not about being sneaky, it's about using intimidation to take something directly from someone. And that brings us to the core legal formula, which is actually really simple. At its heart, robbery is just a theft that's been cranked up a notch with violence or the threat of it. It's theft plus that extra dangerous ingredient. Now, of course, the law is very specific about what that violence ingredient is. To level up a theft to a robbery, the thief has to cause, or just threaten to cause, one of these 6 things. And notice, it can be actual harm, like hurting someone, or just creating the immediate fear of that harm. But here's another twist. It's not enough that theft and violence just happen near each other. The law cares a lot about when the violence occurs in relation to the theft itself. Timing is everything. This shows the critical connection. The violence has to be for the purpose of the theft. It can happen right before, to make the crime possible, during the act itself, or even after, but specifically while carrying away the stolen property. That link is absolutely everything.
Okay, with everything we've just learned, let's put it all to the test with one final tricky scenario that can actually stump law students.
So think carefully about this. A thief steals jewelry, then a siren blares. He panics, drops the loot, and runs. At the exit, the owner stops him, and the thief punches the owner just to escape. Is that robbery? We have a theft, and we have violence. But are they connected in the right way?
And the answer, maybe surprisingly, is no. This is not a robbery. Legally, what you're looking at are two separate crimes, a theft immediately followed by an assault. And the reason why really gets to the heart of the legal definition.
That critical connection was broken the moment he dropped the jewelry. The punch he threw wasn't to help him steal it or to help him get away with it. He had already given up on that. The punch was only to help himself escape. The violence was no longer in service of the theft, so it can't be robbery. So, the crucial point to remember from all this is that for a crime to be robbery, the violence or fear must be used as a tool specifically to accomplish the theft. It's the engine that drives the crime forward. Without that direct link, they're just separate offenses. It just goes to show you, behind every single crime reported in the headlines, there's a complex legal anatomy that has to be proven, piece by painstaking piece. So, knowing all this, does it change how you see justice? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.